Hey everyone, welcome to Season 3, Episode 8 of the Senstennial podcast. And we've got a handful of topics lined up. Right off the bat, we're going to dive into it. The entire Sens roster is basically dead. Everyone's on COVID protocol. It's been one hell of a ride. Today, the NHL announces that they're postponing Ottawa's next 3 games. And yeah, at this point, no practices scheduled. Everyone's just going to be, I guess, chilling at home. Hopefully no more COVID cases or interactions with people with COVID, and this team can heal up and be back on the ice as a healthy bunch of guys getting a win or 2 or maybe 3 for the rest of the 82 games. Something like that. Anyway, all right. We'll jump into it. Other Matt, what do you think about this entire team, not entire team, but most of this team being on COVID protocol?
I mean, we gotta assume it happened in the States, right? Like they were doing something that like smart that they shouldn't be doing.
It's possible.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like realistically, they definitely got it in the States. But anyways, I think that's something that, you know, kind of gets forgotten. Like you definitely know these guys are still like going out and doing things, and that like there is still a pandemic. And I mean, if I was traveling for work and going to the States, no, I am not leaving my hotel room other than to go play a hockey game, coming back, and that's it. Like, no, not down. So, and then, you know, it's what are we at? 10 people in COVID protocol right now. And with protocol, like we were just talking about before we started the podcast, like there is so much confusion about what exactly COVID protocol is. You know, you don't need to be fully positive to be in it, but you need a positive test, I guess. But you can also have a negative test. So that's a thing too. And there are conflicting reports about whether it actually affects your cap or not. Because I guess they mentioned on the broadcast yesterday on TSN that, you know, the Sens are really one of the only teams that could do this because, you know, they're so below the cap that they can call up as many players as they need to fill out their roster. But I mean, if you were close to the cap and you had COVID troubles, I can't imagine that your like things would affect the cap hit if people are in COVID protocol. Like, I can't imagine it would like be against the cap. You know, if the Leafs, for example, you know, Matthews goes into protocol and Marner goes into protocol, you know, I can't imagine they're not allowed to call up 2 two-way contracts because they're so close to the cap. Like that doesn't make sense to me, especially if they don't want to be postponing games. So yeah, I have no idea what COVID protocol is. Like all this to say.
Yeah, it kind of isn't fleshed out.
Well, yeah, to your point, I mean, there's been a lot of sort of like conflicting information. For instance, like Nikita Zaitsev was taken off the COVID protocol and then put right back on it. You know, Batherson was the opposite. He was put on it and then taken off right away and then put back on after playing. And it, you know, begs the question of like, you know, like they said that Drake Batherson tested positive the morning of Saturday's game against Pittsburgh, and then they realized there was a false positive, and so they let him play, and then 12 hours later he was back in the protocol. So it's like, if there was that much uncertainty about whether he should have been in the protocol or not, then why was he playing at all? And anyway, it's quite the situation. And so the Sens season has basically been put on pause. We've got 10 players on the protocol. The league finally stepped in this morning to postpone the next 3 games. Apparently, according to Ian Mendes of The Athletic, you know, the team had been lobbying the league to postpone their games prior to this. They did not want to be playing Calgary or Pittsburgh or any of those teams that we played in the last little stretch. And I understand, again, from reading the piece in The Athletic, that the Sens are supposed to travel on Sunday to go to Colorado. I don't know off the top of my head if the game is on Sunday or if the game is earlier that week, but they're supposed to leave. They have a flight scheduled to go to the US on Sunday. And the league will reevaluate before that point about whether that road trip will go ahead. And so that is where the next decision point is going to be. But like Matt said off the very top, for now, there are no practices, no games. Players are essentially, back to bubbling like they were last year for this week, and they'll kind of see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it's really too bad that this didn't come a week earlier. I mean, you look at guys like Brandstrom who, ideally or hopefully wouldn't have broken his hand and been out for 2 months. Pinto wouldn't have been brought back so soon. I feel like he wasn't fully recovered, and then he gets re-injured and is now, as far as we know, out for the rest of the season. So it's just, I don't know. It seems like it's just brutal timing too. Like it came almost after it was needed rather than beforehand. So that's a little rough, but let's get into a lighter topic. Drake Batherson. Drake Batherson has been rocking it this season. I mean, I know yesterday he missed because of the whole COVID protocol thing, like we just talked about, but he has been a man on a mission this year, and he is making that 6-year contract at a smidge under $5 million look like a steal right now, and you love to see it. So, Ben, I'll let you start off. Like, what have you seen from Batherson, and what are you loving about it?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your Batherson years. That is the name of this episode, and that is the name of this season. Drake has had an awesome season so far. He's got 7 goals, 16 points in 14 games played. He's a point per game player. We didn't have any of those last year, so that's a nice change. When he's on the ice, he looks really great. He's impactful every shift. He has been far and away our most consistent offensive player, and probably our most consistent player full stop this season. He's been so good. He's been. I'm noticing that they're leaving him out for the whole power play. They're putting him on the first power play unit, and then they have him stick around for the second power play, which is possibly more an indictment of our forward depth than it is, a testament to his skill. But it shows that he has the trust of the coach and of his teammates and stuff to make things happen in the offensive zone. And Matt already said it, that contract's looking absolutely like a steal every single day. And one other point to bring up here, as we all know, we're always reminded at the start of every season, you see the photos and stuff, that who does Batherson hang out with and train with in the off season down in the Maritimes? One, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, and Brad Marchand. Not bad guys to be training with and be your scrimmage buddies in the off season. And one can't help but suspect that he's picking up some tips, some habits, some best practices from these genuine superstar players that he's training with. And I think we're starting to see that.
He's nasty. I love to see it. I mean, I don't know if we've had a really good right winger like this for quite a few years now. I mean, Duclair was pretty good when he was here, but Batherson's had 2 4-point games already, which is amazing. I love to see that. He's so graceful with the puck. He's a banger off the puck. You love to see that. He plays a hard-nosed game, but he's masterful with it. He moves the puck really well. He's got really good vision. He's got a hell of a shot. And it kind of makes up for how crappy that 2017 draft was for us. We traded away our first round pick. I don't even know if Bowers has played a game in the NHL, so that's great. And then Batherson is, I mean, if Team Canada really wanted to go young, and I would definitely have him on a bit of a short list for right wingers. I know it is a bit stacked on that right side, but he brings a lot of elements to the game that there are players that are either really finesse and really good scorers or hard nosed. He brings both of those aspects to the ice. So I'm really happy we have him because he has been a bright spot in this very crappy season so far.
And I remember in the summer too when he got that contract, it was I can't remember the media outlet now, but they were like, "Oh, who's this Batherson guy? This seems like a lot of money for an unknown." And I think we all saw last year when he really had that pretty dominant season, I'd say, with Tkachuk and Norris. He looked very steady, 17 goals, very solid player. And I think everyone knew that this wasn't, and no offense to Colin White, but this wasn't the Colin White playing with Mark Stone effect. Like, he was doing this with Norris, who's a rookie, and Brady Tkachuk, who I know he has been in the league now for more than a few years, but still, like, he's not some proven 50, 60 plus point guy, right? Brady's ceiling is still kind of an unknown, I think, at least. And so for Batherson to have the season he did was great. And I think he definitely earned the contract he did. And I actually thought it might even be a bit more. So for it to come in at the cost it did for 6 years, man, if he continues to play like this for even 4 of the next 6 years, like, that contract is going to be majorly undervalued. So I can't complain.
And you're seeing there's, orthodox hockey thinking as of, 5-10 years ago would tell you that a center drives play on a line. They are the play drive on a line. The wingers are complementary players. But I think you're seeing more and more teams and players sort of waking up to the prospect that wingers can drive play just as much as a center can. You've seen it with Patrick Kane, who has been doing it in Chicago for years, and Mark Stone has been doing it in Vegas. And I think that of that top line that tends to play together for us, Tkachuk, Norris, and Batherson, I think Batherson is the offensive driver on that line. It's Norris is great, and Tkachuk is really good too. But I think Batherson is the one, and I'm seeing it more and more this season. He's the one carrying the puck into the zone a lot of the time. I'm seeing that, more and more. He has the puck on his stick. He's not just waiting on the wings for the puck to come to him. He's the one bringing it down. He's the one making plays, and it's great. I think our two most talented forwards are Batherson and Stützle, and they're both wingers, and they both have the potential to drive their lines. I think ultimately they end up playing on the top line together, and then whichever of our centers ends up centering that line, that's our top line of the seasons to come. But yeah, anyway, it's such a great thing to see the team hit on a later round pick. I say later round. I think he was like a second round pick.
Batherson was
a
fourth.
A fourth round pick. Okay, so I think that counts as a later round pick.
And was passed over the year before.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's great to see the Sens really hit a fourth round pick. We've seen that this organization has the potential to do that with those late round picks, make them worthwhile in years and years past. Good to see it continuing to be a factor.
Yeah.
And you took my transition earlier, because I was going to say another player on the Sens who's a play driver from the wing is Tim Stützle. And Tim Stützle got his first goal of the season the other night against the Penguins, and man, you could tell he was happy to get that one out of the way.
Oh man,
that fist bump, I don't know, man. He could have smashed somebody's skull to pieces with that thing. He was very happy, and I was pumped for him. I don't know how many letters I put in Jimmy's name when I tweeted out Jimmy scoring that goal. So, good for him for getting that. And hopefully many more to come this season. We'll see. But yeah, talk about a player who, I know he was playing frustrated trying to score that goal, but man, a player who's so confident in his ability to just skate around the opposition, create plays. He had some very nice passes the other night. I remember one to Josh Norris. Stützle skates in top of the left circle and somehow just slides this nice pass, super crisp, across both circles to Norris, who's on the outside of the right circle. And Norris, unleashed one of his classic one-timers that we've come to love, and it was saved, but it was still just a demonstration of just his vision, his passing ability to break into the zone and just start some offense out of what seems like a harmless play. So he's just such a fun player to watch, and hopefully he continues to score some goals this season and really break open the dam and just become the star player that he really has the talent to be.
He's so impressive. And he even said, I scored in probably my worst game of the season, which is hilarious to me because he's had so many amazing games. I mean, last night in Calgary, against Calgary, he had some really excellent opportunities. Just people couldn't put it away, and it speaks to the cold streak that Josh Norris is also kind of on. He doesn't look like Josh Norris right now, which is a little unfortunate because when Josh Norris is on, he's a dominant player. But Stützle is so dynamic and creative with the puck that not scoring for a couple of games isn't the end of the world. Obviously, you want to see him. I would love if he had 10 goals by now because he'd be already elite. But until then, he's a hell of a teenager, and that needs to be remembered.
Yeah. And I think it's safe to say at this point, he is going through the sophomore slump, which is normal. I mean, basically all players tend to go through that, especially if they come into the league as a teenager. It's only freaks of nature like McDavid to just power through and just get better and better every single season. Like you expect to see some variation, in his production in the first few seasons of his career. So I really don't see it as a problem at all that he had that cold streak to start the season in terms of scoring. He's got his goal now. He's going to pick up some more, hopefully in the next, not in this particular coming week, but in like the next over the course of the rest of this month, and the rest of the season is going to continue to score goals and stuff. I think we might see a little bit of regression over last year. Again, I don't see that as a problem at all. He's finding his game. Teams have a book on him now. It's the structure of the season is going to be a lot different from last year for him. More travel, longer road trips and stuff because of like the way that the divisions are back to normal this year. So we're definitely going to see him struggle a little bit, but it's how he responds to that and powers through and finds the pro solutions to the questions that are being asked of him now. That's going to define the player he's going to be down the road. And I don't think any of us have any doubt whatsoever that player is going to be something special.
And it's really too bad that Pinto got injured for likely the rest of the season because I think Stützle really needs a center who knows how to set him up or someone he can set up to play with. And he doesn't have that in Nick Paul or Chris Tierney. Like, don't get me wrong. Those guys are nice depth players and they definitely don't lack effort, but they're just not talented enough to really get the best out of Stützle or for Stützle to get the best out of them, right? He can only do so much as one player. And let's be honest, if you're playing a line that is Stützle, Paul, and who they have on the right side of that line, Sokolov, I believe. Like, no offense, but of those three guys, who are you going to spend the most time shutting down? Obviously, it's Stützle. So he's like, people be like, yeah, but he's like, playing on the second or in some cases the third line. You might expect him to score more, but if the team is just focusing on him on those lines, like it's going to be harder for him to create stuff on his own. He needs to have someone who's a better centerman, really, that he can play with, who's more talented, so that they can distribute the puck better and create more scoring chances for across the line rather than just relying on him. So that's just another little side point I wanted to make. But
sort of to our point last week in the podcast about where you want to fit Timmy in the lineup. It's like he belongs in the first line and playing with ideally Norris and Batherson or Pinto and Batherson in times when Pinto's not injured. And
so going off of that. And off the protocol situation and injuries, we just mentioned Pinto. Is it time to look at this season as being a wash? And I don't want to be a doom and gloom person. I was, cautiously optimistic going into the season. I was like, if Brady signs, if things go the right way, if Murray bounces back, then I could see this team being like getting out of the bottom 10 and approaching the wild card, but not quite making that. I think I said bottom 15 was my like optimistic goal. And I would have been,
remember, did Bennett and I say bottom 5?
You guys said you guys said bottom 10, but
yeah, we said bottom 10.
But I also know people who are well respected who have been friends of the show here, like one Will Scouch, who actually believed that the Sens had a chance to possibly sneak into the first round. He was very optimistic. So that was kind of nice, but also I kind of teased him a little bit about that. But regardless, is it time to look at this season as not necessarily maybe a wash, but one where let's just get some development out of guys like Lassie Thompson and JBD, Sokolov, let them play, kind of like last year where we just ran with Norris being the 1C, even though he only had 3 games of NHL experience before that. Is it time to just understand that the season's not what you wanted it to be? You got 4 wins in about 15 games. This is a very good top 10 for this upcoming draft. I hate talking about the draft already, but what do you guys think? Is it time to maybe not give up on the season, but lower our expectations, or what?
Without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, other bad, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, sure. It's already been a terrible season thus far. We have 4 wins. And we're already we're tied for second last place with Seattle, which is where an expansion team should be. Screw you, Vegas, for being so damn good.
Yeah.
And then Arizona has 3 points. They have 1 win, which is hilarious.
Arizona are just getting fucking dumpstered every single night. And they're on track to be the worst team in the salary cap era. We thought that Detroit team of a couple of years ago was something. But by God, this Arizona team.
No, you know what the Arizona team is? The Arizona team is if they wanted to make an Avengers copycat and they just hired every D-list celebrity who is washed up and threw them together on a team, and we're like, let's do this, guys.
Yeah, I really, there's no other way to almost guarantee yourself a top 3 pick, and they're doing it, but. As we've talked about, it's a very, very deep draft so far. And I'm kind of the mindset that, the Sens would need at least a 10-game winning streak at some point to even think about getting a wild card spot. They've had such a crappy start as it is. They've been shut out twice already, which hasn't happened in 77 games or whatever it was. And then you go down, I think there are 13 guys on a mixture of COVID protocol and the IR. You lose your second line center in Shane Pinto. You lose your second, third line center guy, Colin White, for basically the season. It's going to be a rough go, and it really, really has been. So I really like the way you look at it. Make it a development year for the guys that, could use it. I like the idea of JBD and Thompson taking the spots of useless veterans like Josh Brown and Zaitsev and Mete even. Like I enjoy Hetherington's game over what we've seen so far. So I would be, as soon as those guys are ready, I'm sorry, but I'd be waving them. I'd wave Forsberg as well. He had
whoa. We're getting to the goalie talk. Slow down, bud.
I'm aware, but there are things that this roster should be doing, and I think you go for another top 5 pick, looking at what our team is sitting at right now, and you go either Brad Lambert, Matthew Savoy.
Brad Lambert's been slipping, bro. He hasn't had a good season. But there's some good players. Shane Wright. Everyone knows Shane Wright, but Joakim Kemmel. I know you and I have talked about him.
Yeah. But I think we need a center.
Yeah,
we need a center.
That's true. It would be really nice to add to the center depth. I find the Sens really draft a lot of centers anyway when they have a top pick.
Yep, and it would be very nice to have that guy that is, a no doubt top 6, probably number 1 center. And your top 3 are going to be let's just say for argument's sake, Brad Lambert, Josh Norris, Shane Pinto, that's a disgusting line down the middle. And it makes Ridley Gregg a little more expendable, because I just saw on Twitter, people are like, no, this guy's untouchable. I'm like, hold on a second, guy.
Yeah, ideally Ridley Gregg's like your third line center, I think.
I mean, I don't know if he supplants Pinto, so...
Yeah, I guess in my hypothetical, I'm just going with which players we have drafted right now. So like if it's Norris Pinto, then Gregg would be your third. But Bennett, what are your thoughts on the season so far?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with other Matt. I was not optimistic going into the season. It is absolutely a wash as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. The moves that this team made this offseason, and just as importantly, the moves that this team didn't make this offseason, told you everything that you needed to know about where this team was going this year. They said they were going to acquire, a top 4 right-handed D, which the team needed. They did not do so. They said they were going to acquire, a top 6 center. They did not do so. We knew what the holes in this team were going into the season, and they were, you can only assume, deliberately not plugged. So, and with the dearth of talent in the bottom 6 of our forward core and the bottom 4 of our D core, shows you that this team was never ready to compete for a playoff spot, especially in the division we're in now, which is a tougher division than the Canadian was last year. I don't really know why Dorion came out and said that we were going to push for a playoff spot this year. I don't know what he was really thinking. I think a lot of, less critically inclined Sens fans took that as gospel going into this season. It's like, yeah, we're going to push for a playoff spot, in defiance of all fact, logic, evidence to the contrary, and are now up in arms and saying, well, why aren't we competing? It's like, we were never going to be competitive with this roster at this point in time.
And let's talk about the fact, this isn't a bad thing if you look at this from a depth perspective, but when Tyler Ennis is your third leading point getter with 8 points in 14 games, good for Tyler Ennis, that's great. But if you're looking at this from a team perspective, and I was to tell you 15 games into the season that it was Drake Batherson, Josh Norris, and Tyler Ennis, you'd look at me and be like, okay, yeah, Tyler Ennis will be the third leading point getter on the team. And again, that's not bad for Ennis. Great for him for being productive. I think he's showing that he's quite capable as a depth player, but you can't have that and expect to be, competing for a wild card spot. You need to have your guys like Tkachuk, who I know has played a few less games than Ennis because of the contract situation, but you need to have your guys like Tkachuk and Stützle, Shabbat, even Zub showing he's got some offensive skill. You need to have these guys be, fill in the score sheet consistently to really have a chance to make that wild card spot. If your guys are not, I don't want to say not on a streak, but if they're not productive 15 games in the season, it happens. But ultimately, you've put yourself really behind the 8 ball and tried to make that wild card spot, or even higher, right? And like you guys brought up, that the division we're in this year it's not the North Division. It is tougher. You got teams, like Florida, Tampa, Boston, all looking good. It's going to be a grind for the rest of the season, and I don't know. There's a lot of good centers at the top of the draft. We didn't even mention Logan Cooley. He's another guy who's up there looking good, and Connor Geeky I know is in the mix as well. So. Anyway, yeah, but Bennett, go ahead. I know you had another point you wanted to make.
Yeah, and just I'm going to take it a step further than we said a second ago about whether you think this is a lost season and everything. I think we needed this season. I think it would have been to the detriment of this team to be a playoff contender this season. Pierre Dorion said the rebuild is over. If it was over, it was a bad rebuild, failed from the start. This team is not good enough to win the Stanley Cup with the players it currently has. And unless if we were to make some big blockbuster moves, move some of our prospects, to acquire the depth that we don't have, then that's something. But I didn't see any inclination the team intended to do that. I think they wanted to compete with the core they've assembled. That would be a mistake. We don't have the talent to put together a cup winning team right now, we need this draft. We need another lottery pick. I'm sorry, but we do. And I think the rebuild is not over. Anyone could see that after the way the season has started. And, to reiterate the point, I don't think the rebuild should be over. I don't think it could afford to be over. And I think we need this year. I think we need that development year, like you said.
Yeah, and like look at teams like Buffalo, who we're like, okay, we're going to rebuild, but then they tried to speed it up a bit by bringing in guys like Kyle Okposo, who that didn't work out. Jeff Skinner, that didn't really work out. I know he's been a bit better this season, but ultimately his contract looks really bad. They've now had to get
contract.
Yeah, and
that contract is the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, and I mean they've been so bad that Jack Eichel wanted out, they traded him. Sam Reinhart wanted out, they traded him. Like they've basically in 10 years gone nowhere, and they drafted Jack Eichel, who people can talk about his character, whatever, but when he is healthy, he is an extremely talented offensive player, and to the fact that they are now basically entering the second part of a rebuild that's been like 10 years is really bad. And I know
think it's just a brand new rebuild for them.
No, exactly. Like it is. But
they're literally just back to square one.
But if you look at the Sens, like we don't want that. I don't want that. Honestly, I'd rather go through 5-6 years of like the pain that we've been going through since like 2017, 4 years. So if we go through, this season of pain and then next season we really see some lift, okay, 5 years, I can handle that because they went scorched earth and traded like everybody or let them walk from the 2017 team. That's unheard of. So, I was on board after I got over my emotional distress about trading, Stone and Duchesne and Carlson, all these guys I liked. I was like, okay, fine. This hurts the heart, but seeing Norris and Stützle and Tkachuk, these guys come in, you're like, okay, this is good. But if they really want to be a force, I agree. They need another top 5 pick, ideally a center, or ideally like just another game-breaking player. I brought up Kemmel earlier. If you had Stützle and Kemmel on the same line, that is like an elite line of a skilled left wing and right wing who would make highlight reel plays that I could only dream of.
And I think we've seen some of the younger D recently and Thompson and JBD playing effectively in the NHL so far, and it just brings me more comfort knowing that those guys are coming on the right side. And, as we tweeted a couple days ago, our 6 defensemen could very well look like Shabbat Zub, Sanderson, JBD, and
Brandstrom.
Yeah, thank you, Brandstrom, the guy that broke his hand. Brandstrom and
so I thought you were being silent out of respect for his recent injury. So I would have provided the name earlier, but I thought you knew what you were doing.
Let's go with that. And that is a very, very good decor. Yeah. And if they all hit their potential, that's a Stanley Cup winning decor. Yeah. So
like 3 years from now, I'm not worried about our decor. Yeah. I am worried about our forward core.
Yeah, that's enough. Where I'm at too. But we'll move on to the last topic here. We got a few minutes left. Let's talk about the goalies. So I know Matt Murray, he's been in and out of the lineup, battling illness, and then he got the neck injury from Kreider. Forsberg came in, looked good initially, and then since then has been not good. So other Matt, I know you were talking about goalies earlier, so you can kick us off for the goalie chat.
I always do, I guess. At what point do you just they should have done this last season. They shouldn't have signed Forsberg. Gustafsson should have gone into the season as the backup, and you should have just run a tandem of Matt Murray and Gustafsson. Yes, I am well aware that are Sogard and Mandolesi available to be backups if there was an injury? Odds are no. But at the same time, Forsberg he's not cutting the mustard. Last night he had a bit of a waffler on his blocker side that he really should have had. And there were saves that, probably should have went in. But at the same time, it's backbreaking when your goalie just isn't cutting it. Gustafson, we have seen, has been the most consistent of the three guys over the last, 2 seasons. Last season it was shortened, and this season he has the most wins out of any of our goalies. So Matt Murray's going to come back, and I think he's got to earn the crease over Gustafson. And Forsberg, I would probably just see if there's a market out there for him, and trade him to an NHL team that can use his services, or put him on waivers.
And I have to say, like, depth goalies, there is a market for them, even if they're underperforming. Like, look at Scott Wedgwood, underperformed in a couple games. Jersey, they put him on waivers. Arizona claims him. And now I think he's played parts of 3 games with them, and he has like a .939 save percentage. So goalies are voodoo. And
shout out to Scott Wedgwood.
Yeah, and I think putting them on waivers, like, it is really risky, because, like, again, Montreal picked up Sam Montembeault off waivers, and he did not have good stats. So I think there's definitely always a market for depth goaltending. And I think when Murray's back, you kind of deal off Forsberg and go from there. But Bennett, did you have anything to add, or Matt, did you want to make your final point here?
Well, I'll tell you the one note that I made for this topic. It says Forsberg is ass and has to go. Murray is less ass and can stay, and Gustafson is even less ass. Yeah. So
I like that assessment.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Wow.
Other Matt's like, I don't even want to go after he made that pun.
Yeah, that's the best way to stop this podcast.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, well, thanks everybody for listening. We really appreciate you. If you're listening, well, you know where to listen to us, but we're also on YouTube, so find us there at the Senstennial Podcast. Hopefully we'll be doing another live stream in the next couple of weeks. We have to firm up some plans, but hopefully that comes together, and we'll see what else is coming down the pipeline. But follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at Senstennial, and we'll talk to you guys on the other side.
Catch you on the flippity flip.
Go Sens,
Later,
go.
Gators.